Hello everyone! Unless by some weird event of time travel, mishap, I happen to also be communicating to the people around the time when telephone was first invented, and in such a case then also ahoy hoy! Welcome to this little talk by myself, Robert Fremantle, and
Lory Cousins. I am the GM for their Fairy Travels.
and he also played Tordrad.
That too.
He just wanted to make this video to explain some curious things that happened during the character creation for the TFT group, when strange coincidences come about, when you've designed some RP for your character and then they just happen to roll that way by way of, say, natural talents or skills that come up, because you can have however many per ratio or whatever, and then certain expansions and career things can let you have things and whatever, choose one of these, choose this, you automatically get this. These kind of things where you roll on charts and expanded versions of things. It just all came about that they got some cool things, and we're here to tell you what some of those are. So the people that understand the TFT group might be able to appreciate that as well. We're going to kick off with my favourite character. This is the guy that I play. Maestro Raphael in the in the flesh, if you please.
Stupid wizard.
Yes.
That's what Tordrad has to put up with every day.
Alright, so he rolled a magnificently good toughness, for example. And you know, he goes through a lot of bad situations, so how the heck can an idiot like that survive? Well, really high toughness. And then of course he ended up with very resilient as well, just to help the toughness bonus along, plus 5%. Because remember, Warhammer Fantasy is a percentile dice-based game. The other thing is, he rolled a really poor strength roll. He rolled like 22 or something like that. So, you know, he's got a very weak, limp-wristed punch on him, let's just say. But all of that all made sense. You know, he's a wizard, he's lived the sedimentary lifestyle, he's lived inside his tower, his master's tower I should say. Magnanimous, Maestro, flame on! He's a bright wizard. So, do you want to turn into a chaos spawned by Maestro already comes loaded with a whole bunch of insanities that to roleplay, you see. I mean, they might not be reflected in the insanity points scored, but they were certainly there, so we knew what actual insanities we would have ticked off for him as soon as he gets enough insanity points to get an insanity. But he did end up with strong-minded, so that would mean he wouldn't have to go insane quite so quickly, perhaps.
I guess the fact that he's partially already insane kind of helps him stay sane.
When playing him as well, a lot of the things that happened, a lot of the roles and things he endured and put off from going insane, he's got a sort of certain psychosis about him, or some sort of psychotic problem, hasn't he? Some personality disorder of some sort. The way that he will give his own life priority over absolutely everything, and he will treat horrific instances with
such disdain.
He's maybe protected from a lot of the things that might drive a normal man insane, because he doesn't care, he doesn't mind about that charred corpse there. It's not him. That's what's important. It's very, very Rincewind, isn't it? And getting on to that point, this is great. He's a big coward. He's a big coward, just like Rincewind in that way. That's the only similarity to Rincewind, however. He does no more than one spell. But on that front, because he's such a survivalist, he gained fleet-footed as well. So it gave him the +1 to his movement, all of the running away he was going to do. And he...
It would be even more funny if he got Flea on that subject as well.
That would be really funny, wouldn't it? The other thing was, he's got this RP about all of his spectacles. He puts different spectacles on for different events. The magnified focal on the lenses would be like at the top, for instance, for mountain climbing. So, you know, climbing up because you're going to be looking up constantly. And that kind of mad inventive process. And because of all of his different spectacles that he pulls out and puts on for different instances, which was there in the RP already beforehand, then he goes and gets the random talent of excellent vision as well. So it's spectacles for the right job. That does bring us on to Lory's character. Even though he was the GM, he played Tordrad. His movement ended up increasing, didn't it? How did you explain that one?
Tordrad basically went down a lot of melee aptitude careers. He ended up in a career called a champion, which has one of its talents as fleet-footed, which Maestro got. The way this basically is explained is being that Tordrad's used to chasing after Maestro all this time because he's running away so much that Tordrad's built up the actual speed to be able to keep up with Maestro in all the heavy armour he has to wear. So even in all that plate that he's got, he can still keep going at the same speed Maestro is.
Yeah.
Maestro likes to run. Run away at every given opportunity.
When these things happen, we have a good laugh about it. We say, oh my god, it's all fitting.
What made Tordrad more suited for even more melee than anything else is the fact that he rolled insanely high on both his weapon skill and his strength. And on top of that, he got both warrior born and very strong, which further increased his weapon skill and strength beyond the max. If I'm going to be taking him as anything, I had to take him as a warrior type soldier in that case, which Tordrad pretty much does act like in his RP. He is a soldier. All he cares about is doing his job. His job, at this point in time, however, is protecting the stupid wizard, as he calls him.
We'll move on to Dietz. Evil character amongst the group. A lot of the things he ended up getting randomly was really strange. He was always a very strange character, wasn't he? Because he didn't roll a good ballistic or a good weapon skill.
He didn't roll good on most of his stats, to be honest.
He can't really do anything very well, but he gets by on sheer player ingenuity.
Maestro and Dietz together can cause a hell of a lot of, well, a storm.
We saw that in the Skaven attack chapter, didn't we?
Yeah.
Just quite how bad they can be together. Peter, who plays Dietz in real life, he's actually ambidextrous, and he ended up with the talent ambidextrous. He's an evil guy with potentially dark, evil roots in his birth. He ended up with cool-headed.
Increased his willpower, so for all those tests for gaining insanity on seeing certain issues.
Because he's a kind of supernatural type character, we found it really, really weird for him to randomly roll Sixth Sense and Fearless, and also a skill, randomly, Hypnosis.
Which he uses to great effect in story terms to be able to keep the group from noticing his darker deeds.
You know, before the skills were rolled for, he spoke about it and said, yeah, okay, well, you know, I can hypnotise people and things like that. Obviously, if he hadn't have rolled it as a skill, it would have been something he'd been training in, you know. But he ended up with it as a natural role, and that was really weird.
Kind of creepy how some of these roles just happened to reflect what the character wanted to do.
Because we knew we wanted the hypnotism for him to try and sort of keep one over on the group, you see. That brings us on now to Rysandria. Rysandria, Willemnia, Elkina, Vor.
Did you just add extra names there?
No, it's always been the names for her, isn't it?
Wow.
We always knew that she liked to talk a lot. Quite the leader, really.
Yes.
Was always going to be the one to be able to be the spokesperson for the group, to talk for the group. And that was always set out in the RP. We really worried that the roles might not affect that and ruin the pre-designated RP, because what do you do then as a player when you've created all this and then the roles completely go against you? You're like, oh, how do I do this?
Yeah, exactly.
In my career I can never ever level this up much. Oh, I'm supposed to be good at this.
Yeah, she rolled a natural 40 on her fellowship.
Then she got Suave,
which adds an R+5 to the fellowship, making her a 45,
sure,
above the natural.
Master Orator.
And Public Speaking, which basically allows her to use Charm, Intimidate, Diplomacy, all the fellowship skills for speaking to crowds, or speaking to people in general, allowing her to affect over basically 450 people from the beginning. That's pretty scary.
Seeing as it was designated in her RP that
she was a very good speaker in public, and
she's the typical
communicate like
the typical leader, the typical guild leader. This brings us on to the final member of the group, Tobias. Yep, it was a group of all humans and one halfling. Didn't get random rolls being a halfling, did he?
No, I think he probably only got one roll, and that roll he got was night vision.
Due to some certain events that happened near the beginning of the story, he ended up with a brain mutation, and he ended up going off into split personalities, dual personalities. A daytime scholar in that worked for the Celestial College, but he was a halfling, so he's anti-magical, so he was a wizard of anti-magic. Whenever they needed someone to diffuse magic, that was his job. But he still had all the scholarly training of a wizard. So that was his daytime self. His nighttime self was rather less academic, wasn't it? He would change personality completely.
Oh, yeah. He was a thief.
It was a damn fine piece of RP anyway, to have these two split personalities that don't even recognise each other. They don't even know each other exist. What they ended up doing was having two stat sheets. Tobias regressed back to the thief-type, low-life character he used to be, and he set his brother off, Frederick, into being that as well. And Frederick didn't manage to reform, and he always carried that guilt. So this mutation to the brain sort of set that off and set about this mental illness as well to make that come about. But the two were going off in two very different directions, weren't they? Gaining different skills and talents and different stats, wasn't it, as well?
Oh, yeah.
Based on the two careers at once. So it's literally you abandon one sheet and you pick up the other at night, and you pick up the other one in day, and so on.
He did go insane at one point. Because of the split personality, when one insanity kicked in, the other had to gain the same insanity, but daytime Tobias ended up with fear of the dark. Nighttime Tobias, the thief, ended up with fear of the light, so...
The fact that the daytime version feared the dark because his comfort zone was light, and the nighttime version, darkness was his friend, and the light presented danger. So that was a rundown on how the characters kind of worked out when we rolled them, and how we lolled IRL. Like that. See? That's lolling IRL.